Rhett Shull is a professional guitar player with a big YouTube channel. And in this video, I'm going to show you 5 pro tips for watching his channel at an...
Actually, I'm going to show you 5 pro tips for watching my channel.
You talk about gear that's awesome. You talk about gear that's cool and special, but has some drawbacks. I've never seen you do a video that was just like an outrage post about like how much something sucks. If you've done those and I've missed them, I apologize.
I've done one. It was the WTF Gibson video, and it was about that 2019 Les Paul standard that they did that had like the goofy colors and the dip switches, and they tried to make it sound like a Strat and everything. And that was like a rant video. And that was one of the first like big videos I ever had on my channel that garnered a lot of attention. And I've mixed emotions about that video because I stand by everything I said in that, even to this day. And I've since gotten to know the new leadership and the new people at Gibson, and we've talked about that video. I mean, I've talked to Jim DeCola, who was like one of the chief engineers on that guitar, about that video, and it pissed him off. But
it actually pissed him off.
Oh yeah. I kind of was like, hey man, I hope you weren't upset by the video I made, because I actually had a clip of him in my video and then was kind of calling him out. I was like, hey man, I hope you weren't upset by that. I didn't mean to, like, whatever. He was like, yeah, it was, in so many words, he told me, he was like, yeah, it sucked. It sucked to see that video because we worked really hard on that guitar. So on one hand, I didn't want, that's not what I want to be known for. I don't want to be like the angry, ranty guy on YouTube that's like talking about how much this piece of gear sucks. Because at the end of the day, there's real people behind these things. And even the biggest companies, your Fender, your Gibsons, whatever, there's real people designing this. There's real people going to work every day building these things, whether it's a one person in their garage building a pedal or 500 people at a factory building Les Pauls, it doesn't matter. So when it comes to making videos about pieces of gear, I have basically 2 criteria. Is this something that I would purchase and use in real life? Aside from, you forget the channel, forget the, views and all that stuff. Would I be interested? Would I spend my money on this? Or would I recommend to one of my peers, one of my friends, to buy this thing? And is it something that inspires me? Is it something that I'm excited to check out and play? So that means that there are some pieces of gear that I just won't make videos about because I don't think they fit those criteria. I wouldn't spend money on this thing, and I wouldn't recommend somebody to spend money on this thing. So
does it have to meet both of the criteria, or is one enough?
I think one's enough, I mean, but that's why I don't do videos about like, oh, there's a new overdrive pedal out. Like, okay, cool. I mean, go play it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I get emails from people, which is really cool. People ask me, hey, I've got this pedal and this pedal. What overdrive pedal should I get? And I feel like nowadays, it's like, dude, just go on Sweetwater or something, order it. They've got a crazy return policy. Order it, put it on your board and play it. If you don't like it, send it back. You don't need me to tell you what type of overdrive you need to use with whatever's on your board,
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, I kind of feel like this might be more me than you, so stop me if I'm putting words in your mouth. But I want to say that there's a pro tip it doesn't matter what overdrive pedal you use.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
What kind of comment are you the most likely to respond to on your own channel?
I don't get this often, but honest, constructive criticism. I'm very open to criticism, very open to like honest feedback. And I think that's a pretty healthy place to be. Oftentimes, the internet being what it is, you don't often get honest. You get a lot of criticism, but most of it is not constructive. So yeah, and I have responded to stuff like that. Like, hey man, what you did in this video, I understand what you were trying to do, but this is how it came across. Oh, cool. Thank you for that. Like, that's going to make my next video better. Thank you. and this is why I don't really dig forums that much. I've never been a big forum person, and I understand they add a lot of value and they educate people. I'm not saying I'm not like anti-forum. I'm just saying for me, that's not how I've learned about gear and learned about sounds, because oftentimes I feel like they kind of lose the forest for the trees in these discussions. And I see it in the comment sections of my videos all the time. Where it's like, you know, the most recent example was the quad cortex video I did. And I kind of compared it to the Kemper, and that ignited this whole debate on the efficacy of the Kemper versus the Kemper profile versus the quad cortex neural capture and all this stuff. And it's like, sure, there's a difference, and sure, there's an appreciable difference in the response and all that technical side of it, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't, if you're a Kemper owner, you don't need to go sell your Kemper to go buy the quad cortex so that it can make you a better musician or more inspired. It's not going to do that. And if that's where your head's at, you're in the completely wrong place, in my opinion. You just are. Think about Radiohead. Ed O'Brien, you know, a master sonic architect, if you will, to steal Jimmy Page's term. Gear matters. Like, he wouldn't be able to make those sounds without, you know, a DL4 and without the sustainer strat and all that kind of stuff. But when you listen to Radiohead or you go see Radiohead live, I can guarantee you, even the most, you know, type A guitar player out there is not watching Radiohead live and thinking like, man, I'd really enjoy this better if he had the Cannabis Rex speakers in those cabinets over there. Like, I feel like there's a little too much high end coming from. He's probably got some like Alnico blues in there, and I think this would be better if there were Alnico golds.
That person definitely exists.
Do they? Because
I do. Because you just said before that you're not on forums. It shows that you're not on forums because that person is on forums.
To me, that's such a, and look, whatever, if that's how you choose to enjoy and engage with your music, then by all means, like, don't let me, I'm just a dude that like plays guitar and makes videos about it. Like, so don't let me tell you how to experience and find joy in this instrument, in this pursuit. But from my perspective, in my opinion, I think that is such a backwards way to engage with art.
How much of your playing in like a gear video is improvised?
I would say, in terms of like the solos that I play.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, you doing a lead over a track that's like produced.
100%. I don't typically write out solos. I'll write out parts. I'll come up with like a melody or something like that. I'll write that out. Same thing with my bass tracks. I'm not a great bass player, but I'm good enough, and I will give myself 3 takes basically on bass. I'll track it, and then I'll call it done, and then I will play, you know, and this goes back to that thing we were just talking about. I found when it comes to recording solos, I have 3 or 4 takes, and after 3 or 4 takes, it just starts to fall apart, and I completely lose the vision of what I wanted to try and do, and my playing gets worse. So in my early days of writing tracks for YouTube videos, I would play 30, 40 takes of a solo.
Each one improvised.
Each one improvised, and each one shittier and shittier than the previous one. And now I've gotten to the point where if I don't get it in 3, I'll put the guitar down, I'll go work on something else, and I'll come back to it later, maybe the next day or something. If it's a bad note, or maybe not the best playing, or maybe it's a weird edit, or I fumbled a word or something, as long as it's not distracting from the story or from the point that I'm trying to get across, that's an acceptable imperfection. Also, YouTube is an imperfect place. I think sometimes people forget that YouTube and the I guess the nature of YouTube is that it is sort of DIY, and people want that. People, I think, want to go to watch a YouTube video and know that this is a person making this with a camera and a laptop in their home somewhere. It's not about perfection. It's not about super high polished production value. You know, you're not watching a Netflix special or something like that. You're watching YouTube videos. So there is some imperfection that is, it's like live music. Some of the most boring concerts I've ever been to, the Eagles. I love the Eagles, but most boring show I've ever seen in my life because it was perfect. It was note for note, tone for tone, just like their records. And I was bored out of my mind because there's not that sort of like danger of improvisation. There's not that imperfection. You know, they're not going to screw anything up. You know, they're not going to miss a note, and it's boring.
Yeah, it's funny to hear you say that. So I'm also an Eagles fan, but I also think that is like the dead on criticism. And I have this like fan theory that Don Henley looks a little bit like T-1000 in Terminator 2, just a little bit. And if you sort of imagine like how would that liquid killer robot like function as a musician, it would be like very risk averse.
Yep.
Like very efficient, like utterly consistent. It would just be like, okay, we're going to deliver some hit songs and we're going to perform them within the mission parameters as straightforwardly as possible. And like the look, I mean, I'm an Eagles fan. That's the only reason I'm saying any of this. The look in Don Henley's eyes is kind of the look of a dehumanized killer robot from the future. I don't know if you ever noticed that.
You're so right.
But it's like, it would explain a lot, I think is what I'm saying.
That's such a perfect analysis of Don Henley as a musician. You're right. And even how he conducts himself online, like just by blocking and you cannot do anything even remotely close to the Eagles or Don Henley without him or his estate or whoever blocking you. It's just there's this digital like ruthlessness about how he conducts his business. But hey, it's very ruthless, but I've heard he's a nice guy in person.
Do you ever imagine who the like ideal viewer is? Or maybe ideal is a weird word, but do you ever think about like who's the quintessential Rhett Shull YouTube viewer?
I don't think about the viewer, like who's watching my videos, as much as I think about, is this something that I would have watched when I was 13 or 14 years old and starting off learning guitar? Basically, that's kind of how I approach my stuff, is how can I teach what would have been myself even 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, the stuff I've learned in the last 5 years. How do I show that to someone who is new or learning something new or trying to go deeper into the instrument? That's really what I think about. It's not necessarily like a certain demographic or age group or anything like that. So
right, it's the Rhett Shull age 13 demographic.
yeah, it's me.
It's like a market segment of one person who doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly.